Missouri's going to host Kentucky on Saturday in the regular season finale for both teams. An interesting spot for both teams too, Subi. I think the way both are playing, you could say that they're on the same plane or same tier of the SEC, kind of trending in similar directions as well. Since Missouri has lost through the last four games coming into this one, we'll dive into each side here in a second. But what's the biggest storyline or biggest X factor you're looking for in this one?
I suppose storyline, it might be low hanging fruit, but points, baby. Points, points,
Yes.
points. We're going to get a lot of them. I love it. I can't wait. I'm glad you mentioned that these teams have been operating on the same plane. Like looking at this matchup, it's going to be incredibly competitive, and I think it's going to be very balanced across the board. But really, over the last 10 games for both of these teams, they haven't played all that special. They've both been kind of average, as a matter of fact. But from a storyline perspective, the points is going to be what I'm going to be looking at. But as it relates to an X factor, maybe you can give me someone personnel wise. I'm going to think holistically at a team
Yeah.
perspective. X factor, I think Kentucky's a better rebounding team, and I think ultimately that might be a big difference maker in Missouri. So I'm looking at how Kentucky can crash the glass, but then at the same time, Ralph, like there's injury concerns. I'm going back and forth on this. I don't know if I've made a verdict or a decision just yet on who's going to win this game. Luckily, I have some time. I might just kick it to you to buy that time, man. But look for points and look for Kentucky on the glass.
Yeah, both of these teams ranked top six nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency. There's going to be points scored in this game. I want to bring up Caleb Grill because he, to me, well, he's an X factor personality wise too, but he has been a huge X factor for Missouri this season because typically when he plays well, Missouri wins, and when he does not, they lose. In his wins, or in Missouri's wins, he's averaging 16.4 points per game, shooting over 51% from three. In their eight losses, he's averaging 10.2 points per game, shooting 22.6% from three. You want to know if Missouri's going to be competitive in this game? Is Caleb Grill making the shots or not? To me, that's the big thing because he gives them that boost off the bench and he basically serves as a starter playing starters minutes, but he gives them that added like really secondary scoring option that they need because Tamar Bates has been the guy, but in terms of ranking the guys in the SEC, Tamar Bates isn't going to be at the top of that list. You need some really good secondary scoring, and when Grill provides that, Missouri can beat anybody in the country, as we've seen them do oftentimes this season.
Yeah, an added layer to Caleb Grill getting going. Keep me honest here, all right? You're the SEC guy. This might be a real big stretch where I hurt my hamstring, but when he gets going, he's got a little bit of that swag that slightly reminds me of Marshall Henderson,
Yes.
where the building can just get electric and he's talking. He's probably looking at the opposing team's bench and I don't know, he goes on this heat check, right? So it's not just necessarily the mathematic points that get put on the board, but it's that added boost of what Caleb Grill and who exactly he is can bring to the table. I mean, on the whole, though, Mizzou shoots so well, but it is vitally important to get him going because the numbers that you laid out, they're staggering. And you know what's funny, Ralph? We see this with a lot of teams, right? Like, and Rothstein always tweets it. It seems like for every team, it's like, so and so is like undefeated when X, Y, and Z goes for double figures. And I feel like that's a little lazy because I don't know, there's some sort of stat that you can bring up with Ben Gold of Marquette. When he goes double figures, Marquette's like undefeated or 12-1. It's like, well, yeah, man, like Ben Gold's not a slouch. He's pretty good. He's capable of going for double figures, and Marquette's a pretty good team. That means their offense is clicking. But like the disparity between those numbers, the feast or famine, is not only. I mean, Missouri. Thank God I'm not a fan of them because they are feast or famine, man. Like they're so much fun to watch because it could be a train wreck, or they could shoot the lights out. So I'm excited for that. But I just wanted to run that Caleb Grill, Marshall Henderson.
That's a, that that he probably is the most Marshall Henderson esque player since Marshall Henderson. Now he has toned it down a little bit this year, but like, yeah. And also, this whole Missouri team's kind of chippy. There was some chippiness with the Oklahoma loss on Wednesday as well. There was some back and forth between a couple Missouri guys and Jeremiah Fears in particular. And Jeremiah looked like he was enjoying stirring the pot. One thing with Missouri too, we talked about Kentucky's defense, or we have earlier this season. Kentucky's defense has improved. Missouri's last 5 games, the first of which was when they beat Alabama. Right, that was the huge game. Kind of surprisingly, they've lost 3 or 4 since then. But that was kind of the game that announced Missouri. 98 points given up to Alabama, 92 to Arkansas, 71 to South Carolina, 97 to Vandy, 96 to Oklahoma. It's not good.
No, silence kind of speaks for itself. No, it's definitely not. I think another item I'm looking at here, Ralph, because I mentioned Kentucky's rebounding advantage.
Yep.
If I'm looking at Mizzou's rebounding advantage from an X factor perspective, or not rebounding advantage, just their advantage, they turn teams over. They turn them over pretty well. And Kentucky likes to play that fast-paced offense. So when you're going fast on the road against a team that turns you over, I actually think Mizzou is going to feast there as well. And I think that's going to be something that they can hang their hat on. Now, you mentioned some of those defensive numbers, but do you see anything there? Like, is this a game or a spot where maybe Kentucky's a little too jacked up and it's going to be senior day for Mizzou? They play incredibly tough. I don't know. Is it some helter activity?
The vibe checks are always interesting with these kind of games because, getting up for a team as good as Missouri is something that you should be able to do, right? But Missouri, how many games like this has Kentucky played this season, right? It's a lot of them because all the SEC games are like this. There's always an added element, though, when you are a team like Missouri playing a team like Kentucky, particularly when they go to your arena and it's senior night. The emotions are going to be incredibly high. The motivation is going to be incredibly high, right? Kentucky's going to play a road game. Missouri's hosting Kentucky. I think those are two very different mindsets. Now, Missouri is a team that kind of rides off of the mindset and the edge and the vibes a little bit. I expect that to play into it. Kentucky has been pretty businesslike this season, other than when Otega-Oweh was telling somebody on Georgia that it was their Super Bowl, which he may do again in this game. But they've been businesslike. What concerns me, though, and this is where the Jackson Robinson injury could come into play. You mentioned Missouri's propensity to turn turnovers or force opponents to turn the ball over. Excuse me, easy for me to say. Lamont Butler is kind of the only one, him and Otega-Oweh, that I feel comfortable with really handling the ball for Kentucky against pressure. Kobe Brea is not somebody that I'm going to trust. You go to the bench and you bring in a Travis Perry or Colin Chandler. Their turnover rates have been astronomically high this season, the highest on the team of guys that have now played consistently. So if Butler can go and play 35 minutes, I think you're fine. But the injury concerns there could potentially lead to something where there's some problems for Kentucky.
We're not trying to belabor this with Kentucky previews, but the injury concerns are a real deal. Like, it's a huge, huge impact for this team. I don't think it's fair to view them as a team like the team we saw in the first couple months of the season, because they're not fully healthy and it's clearly impacted them. Them's the breaks, right? Like,
yep,
you got to deal with it. But I do think there's going to be a part of me that kind of considers Pope saying to himself, look, we got bigger fish to fry. Obviously, he wants to win every single game, but this goes to your point about them being more businesslike, right? Kentucky, it seems like, is going to want to get out of there healthy, get out of there as healthy as possible to make a run in the SEC tournament, because the SEC is so stacked. We know that. And it truly wouldn't shock me if Kentucky was like in the semifinals or the finals of the SEC title game. So I think Mark Pope is going to be thinking about that a little bit more. And I don't blame him for that. Like, Kentucky's not a bubble team. All right. They're solidly in. They're good to go. There's more at stake than just this game against Missouri. Maybe that plays a little, I don't know. I might be like psychoanalyzing this a bit too much, Ralph, but health is what matters to this Kentucky team.
Yeah, more than anything else. And I think this is where there may be a different mindset between like us as media members or people on YouTube talking about this game versus the people who are in that locker room and Mark Pope with the coaching staff making these decisions. Because we agree you need to get healthy. What do you need to get healthy for? Are you just like, you know what, as long as we're good for the NCAA tournament, we're fine. Doesn't matter what happens before that. That's different than being like, we want to make a run in the SEC tournament. Right? That you're going to approach those things a little bit differently, and that could impact how you handle rotations and things in this game against Missouri. In my mind, if Mark Pope can just win a game in the NCAA tournament, win that first round game, that's perfect because that's something John Calipari hasn't been able to do, and this is like what the entire season has essentially been about, for better or for worse, for Kentucky. And Mark Pope is getting past that, because if they get upset in the first round again, all the people who were kind of, why are you hiring Mark Pope? He hasn't won a tournament game. All the people who are like, why'd you get to Calipari? Are going to come back out of the woodwork that have been silenced for the year. But I don't think like Mark Pope and Kentucky think that way, where it's like, we, as long as we win that, we're fine. Like they see it as competitors wanting to win the SEC tournament and wanting to go as far in the NCAA tournament as they possibly can. And given some of the struggles they've had since the middle of January and the health struggles and trying to find a rotation, I think they're going to come out and play at a pretty high level, pretty motivated in this game. I think Amari Williams needs to have a big game, given Missouri, the advantage they should have over Missouri in the front court. And if you get the typical solid play from Butler, Oweh, you get Andrew Carr playing a little bit better as he's getting more and more healthy. You could expose Missouri's defense. We just talked about how bad they've been. Could be some open looks from three.
No, you're not wrong. And I mean, when Kentucky gets going, I think you previewed and recapped the Kentucky LSU game, and obviously it was against LSU, but they just blew them off the court, right? Like within the first 10
never
minutes.
A doubt.
Yeah, and that's a little different. Obviously, you're at Rupp, which I think actually plays into my prediction for this game. But make no mistake about it. Like, it might sound like I'm coming off as saying Kentucky's going to wave the white flag. I'm not saying that at all. I just think this one, the spot isn't favorable for Kentucky because this is a team that has some other off-court issues, namely injuries, to deal with, whereas Mizzou is coming off of a brutal loss. I mean, it's not like impacting their postseason run, but they didn't compete that well against Oklahoma, if we're being 100% honest. They're home, it's senior night, and they want to get right for the SEC tournament again. These two teams are very comparable. They both have been playing pretty average, middling basketball the last 10 games or so. But in terms of the metrics, in terms of the personnel, in terms of the style of play, it's very, very similar. This is going to be a competitive game. It's going to be a close game. But this is kind of one of those deals where if you're a fan of one of these guys, you're not terribly upset with whatever result happens, right? Like, you got postseason basketball coming your way.
Yeah. These teams are 15 and 16 on KenPom, to tell you how close they are. They're right next to each other. KenPom has Missouri winning this game by 4, 87-83. Playing this in Columbia, Missouri has an impact on that, I imagine. How do you see this playing out? Do you think Missouri wins, or can Kentucky go on the road and get it done?
Two closing things. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you know how many times Missouri has lost at home this year?
I'm going to go with 0.
Close. One time. And it was the result of a Wade Taylor 3 in the remaining seconds where he ripped their guts out. All that to say, Missouri is a very tough place to play this season. Okay. Now, on the flip side, Kentucky has not shown that they can take their show on the road. Again, there's a lot of factors that have gone into their season. But at the end of the day, true road games, they are 3-6. Okay. That is enough for me, despite the fact that they are so similar. It's enough for me to say that Missouri wins this game 85-84 in what could be the game of the day outside of whatever mid-major postseason basketball is going on.
One of those road wins for Kentucky was at Tennessee. Just throwing that out there.
Fair.
To your point about this game like kind of meaning more to Missouri than Kentucky because it's senior night, because it's at home, because Kentucky's coming to town, I think matters a lot in games like this when you're not playing for a regular season title, right? I was on a preview with Dion. We were doing the Texas A&M Auburn preview earlier this week, and we both said A&M would win the game because what does Auburn have to play for? It seemed like a letdown spot, and it was. I think it's not the same kind of vibes for Kentucky, but it's similar vibes for Kentucky. Where like you win this game and cool, right? Like, you win the game, what you want to do, but there's more into it for Missouri. I think you need the win because of how you've played. And Kentucky does too, but they've not been as bad recently as Missouri has been. Senior night, home court. I think that plays into it. I think Missouri wins by, we'll call it 6, but a close, entertaining game that is played in the 80s, certainly. It'll be a fun one. We'll be back with a full preview after the game, no matter what happens. It's probably going to be a Kentucky win, considering we both picked Missouri.
Yeah.